Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Megan here, and today we are going through all of the books that I read in January. I had a huge reading month in January. I read 33 books, and then I also started a few. Some I did not finish because I did not enjoy them, so I just DNF'd them, and some I did not finish because I just ran out of time in the month, so I carried them over to February. But we are going to get into all of that plus the stats. And as always, I'm going to start with the books that I did on a digital read. That way I can put the covers here. But we'll kick it off with the books I digitally audiobook read. So first we have the entire Intercepted Quartet, I guess you could call it. There's 4 books in the series. It's a romance series of football romances, and each book has its own respective romance. The first book, Intercepted, is following a young woman who was dating, I believe he's a wide receiver. I could be incorrect. There was a lot of football terms in this. I believe he was a wide receiver, and he ended up cheating on her, and she found out in front of the quarterback. And the quarterback just so happens to be someone that she had a one-night stand with, and so he intercepts her, and they start a relationship in front of the wide receiver after she breaks up with the wide receiver for cheating on her, so on and so forth. But the quarterback and her get together, and it's super cute. I really love them. And then there's Fumbled, Blitzed, and Snapped, and that is following respective characters from the first book. Then back in 2023 I read The Marriage Game. So in January I read The Dating Plan and The Singles Table, which are the 2 sequels of the trilogy, and those were super fun. I love the characters in these books. I think The Marriage Game was my favorite, but The Dating Game and The Singles Table were also really fun. Then I read The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary, and I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really feel a lot of feelings towards this book. It kind of just felt meh to me. I didn't hate it, I didn't love it, I didn't really care either way what happened. I was not invested at all in these characters, which is so sad because I really loved the concept of this book and I really wanted to like it, and it just didn't work for me. Then I read a YA contemporary called More Than Just a Pretty Face, and this is following a young man who I believe he's being arranged in marriage, and his parents just don't believe that he's going to amount to anything because he wants to be a chef instead of a doctor or a lawyer or something of that nature. And he's like, I'm more than just a pretty face. Like, I know, like, his parents say he's attractive and that's the only thing that will keep the women interested, and he's like, I'm more than just a pretty face. And I really liked the concept, and the person that he's being arranged in marriage to, he's not really interested in. He's absolutely enamored with his best friend's sister, and he's doing everything he can to be good enough for her. And in the course of trying to be good enough for her, he falls for the person that he was originally intended for. So it's kind of like an unexpected friends to lovers. Then I read Too Good to Be Real. I loved this one. It was so much fun. It's following a journalist who's about to be laid off, but she gets a chance to redeem herself, or like to prove that she's worth keeping, and they assign her to the Take Me, I think is what the column is called, but essentially it's trying to promote local venues or activities to do near them, and it's like a travel column. And she ends up finding a hotel that promises a rom-com experience, and it's so cute. I love the way that the author handled like the rom-com situation within the rom-coms. And then we had The Wedding Season, which is a book following a young woman whose fiance breaks up with her the day before their wedding, and she is devastated, rightfully so, but she has a whole season of her friends' weddings that she has to attend. And so to prepare for being single at these, her friends task her with different challenges she has to complete at each wedding. For example, one of them is like she has to be the last one dancing on the dance floor, and another she has to make a speech. Just kind of various tasks that get her out of her comfort zone and challenge her so that she's not thinking about how she's single. And then I read Teach Me, which is a book about a teacher who she's in charge of like AP history, but a new teacher is coming in and he is assigned her AP history class. So she immediately feels a dislike of him, but he's such a kind character, so it's hard to not love him, and they form a friendship and then relationship. So those are all the audiobook romances I read that were just ones that I've seen and were from the library. And then I did read 3 digital books for review. I read The Long Game by Elena Armas. I also have it in a physical copy, so I can show it here. This is following a young woman who her father owns like a soccer company or something of that nature, and I forget what she did, but her father was disappointed in her actions and she was sent away, and where she was sent was like a young girls preparatory school, and she is neighbors with the soccer coach and they form an enemies to lovers. If you like, I think it's called Big Shot with John Stamos on Disney Plus, you would probably like this book. Then I read The Love Plot. This one is following a cosplayer who ends up falling for a, I think, Rose from Titanic high class guy, and they form a fake dating. He hires her to kind of be a gig person for his fake dating challenge and be his fake girlfriend so that his parents stop trying to set him up with people, and they end up falling for each other, and it's like an opposites attract. However, I will say I didn't particularly like this one because it felt so unrealistic. They just felt from like 2 completely different worlds, and I know that can work in some cases, but they just felt too different to me and I just didn't believe it, to be honest. And then the final book for review I read was Artifacts of an Ex. This is such a cute little YA contemporary romance. It's following a young woman who is an art curator, and her grandma has dementia, so they had to move across the country to be with her grandma. And when they moved, her boyfriend stayed in New York and then broke up with her via a USPS box of things from their relationship. This in turn gives her the idea to start Artifacts, which is an art gallery of all of these breakup boxes. And she's also a planner, so it was super fun to watch the unfolding of the creation of this gallery and all the planning that went into it. And also she was very descriptive with like her planning, because she has a planner, like a journaling YouTube, so she would say how she was journaling in the book, and that was super fun. I really enjoyed this one. So those were all the digital books. I also DNF'd 4 books. I DNF'd If I Never Met You, I DNF'd Hidden Figures, and then I also DNF'd Eligible and Faeband. These ones I just couldn't get into. Moving on to the books I read physically. I already touched on The Long Game, but I also finished the Boyfriend Project trilogy and read The Hookup Plan. This is a trilogy by Farah Rashan following 3 young women, or 3 middle-aged women. I don't know. I feel like they're my age. I'm not middle-aged yet. 3 women who are dating a guy and find out they're all 3 dating the same man in a very public fashion. And when they all 3 discover it, they form a friendship, obviously, because they were all wronged. And in this, they come up with the Boyfriend Project, which is a pact that they had with each other to stop trying to get into a relationship and go after the goals that they've been putting off. So the first 2 books I've read before, but The Hookup Plan follows London, which is our 3rd female, and her goal was to find a hobby, because she is a like highly renowned world-class pediatrician, and she is just really well known, and she's constantly working and pretty much burning herself out. And there's even points where she has like high blood pressure and stress just from being so burnt out of how much work she's doing. So her goal is to find hobbies and also to burn off her stress in other ways. And so she has a hookup plan with one of her old classmates who just so happens to be her old nemesis. So this was fun. It was my least favorite of the trilogy, but I still really enjoyed the book as a whole. Then we have Recommended for You. This is by Laura Silberman and is following a competition within a bookstore. Then these two are kind of not rivals, I would say, but adversaries and they're trying to see who can sell more books. And it's just fun because it really delves into like reading and book recommendations and how booksellers sell their books, but also into why someone might need money and looking beyond the surface of things. Then I read Every Summer After and I loved this one. It did give me I think it's called Love in Other Words and also The Summer I Turned Pretty. Like if you combined those two, it was very similar, but it is a back and forth in time between present day and past leading up to what caused the conflict of this book. And our main girl had like something happened while she was, I believe, in middle school, and so her parents took her away for the summer to this cabin that they purchased on a lake, and next door were two neighbor boys, and it's just the slow unfolding of their love story, and I absolutely adored the main guy character in this, so really enjoyed this Every Summer After book. Then I read Pride and Prejudice. Finally, I finished a classic. I'm so proud of it. I was really intrigued throughout the whole thing. I think my biggest complaint is that this is viewed as like one of the greatest love stories, but it didn't really feel like there was a lot of romance happening, and I'm sure it's just a product of the time it was from, and it was probably a lot of romance back then, but I'm so used to like so much more buildup of the romance and so much more interaction between the two main characters that just this kind of fell flat in the romance department for me. But overall it was a really good book, and because I read this, I also read many retellings including Pride, Prejudice, and Other Flavors, Dangerous Alliance, Pride by Ibi Zoboi, and the Pride and Prejudice manga. So I was having a huge Pride and Prejudice mood. I also really wanted to watch the movie, but discovered that it's not on any streaming anywhere, which is annoying, but alas. Moving on to some of the fantasies I read this month. I read The Last Tale of the Flower Bride, and this is like a dark fantasy mystery contemporary. There's a lot of things happening in this. It's following a young man who is taken in by a woman with many secrets, and it's flipping between perspectives of a man and then also her childhood friend, and it's both of them kind of experiencing the same things at different times in this woman's life, and it's super dark and it's super magical. I'm not much of a like horror person, so it's got a little bit of like horror-y vibes, but it's definitely not scary. Then there's Small Favors, which is a Rumpelstiltskin retelling, and it's following a town in which everything is going awry and everyone's starting to fight, and little deals are made here and there based on giving blood, and there's strangers in town who are making these exchanges, and it's slowly revealed what, but it is so confusing. Like, I was having trouble following it at times, I won't lie. Erin A. Craig does a really good job of like that misleading, untrustworthy author narrator kind of vibe, so it was definitely fitting in her normal writing style. My foot's falling asleep. And knowing that House of Flame and Shadow is coming out this month in February, I have been rereading the ACOTAR series. So I did read A Court of Thorns and Roses, as well as A Court of Mist and Fury, and I did start A Court of Wings and Ruin, but I'm still working on this one here in February. I'm still really proud of finishing so many books that I did. Then I also reread Siege and Storm in anticipation of eventually getting to Rule of Wolves, which is the final book of the Grishaverse series. And I also reread Fourth Wing, but this time I annotated it. Look at all those annotations. I'm just in love with this series. This was my third time rereading it. It was actually our book club pick of the month, and I was anticipating not reading it and just moving on to Iron Flame, but I don't know, I just felt like annotating it this time. Clearly, I'm really enjoying this book, and I'm obsessed. So, there's Fourth Wing. And then speaking of Fourth Wing, I also read Iron Flame, and I also annotated this one. I didn't start annotating until about halfway through. It got to a point where I was like, alright, I gotta pull out the annotations, because I normally like to just read through the first time, but there was so many things happening in this book that I just wanted to like annotate as I went, and I didn't start till halfway through. I think part 2 is when I started really getting into it. Oh my gosh, absolutely gagged by this book. I'm still horrifically upset that I was spoiled for the ending. I'm not gonna say obviously what the ending is here, but I was spoiled the morning that I finished this book. I got a huge, like the hugest spoiler for the ending spoiled to me when I was scrolling on TikTok. So that'll teach me to just stop being on my phone, put down my phone, and finish the book. I also read The Scarlet Alchemist, and I thought I would like it, and it turns out I did. I really loved this one. It's following a young woman who is a basically necromancer alchemist in a way. She uses alchemy to bring the dead back to life, and she is entering the competition to become a royal alchemist, but the prince is also trying to garner her help because he feels that he is about to be murdered, and so he wants to use her assistance to bring him back to life if he gets assassinated. And it's just so good, and I was not expecting the ending at all. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait for book 2, and I just got this one. And finally we have the graphic novels I read. I read Heavy Vinyl 1 and also 2. This is a fun series, kind of like Fight Club meets Lumberjanes and or Avant-Garde, I think is the other one, but it's like a group of all-girl Fight Club gang. It's pretty fun. And then I also have just this miscellaneous, I don't think I even recorded it on Goodreads, but I got this little Taylor Swift comic, and it's like a biographical comic of her, and it's cute. Definitely missing some things, and the illustrations are cute but could be better. There you have it. I thought this was an official thing, and then I got it and I was like, this is definitely not official. So probably could have done some more research, but it's still fun. And that is everything I read in January. Let me go through, if I can find where I just put my phone, my stats with you on how my reading was for the month. In January, I started with 584 physical TBR. I read 15 physical TBR, and I hauled 15 books. So we are staying right at 584 physical TBR for the month. I also read 6 rereads, 14 library books, and 2 books for review, because I counted the long game towards my physical TBR instead of books for review since I owned it. I also had 21 audio, 10 physical, and 2 ebook. I had 6 5-star reads, almost all of which were my rereads and or sequels. I had 4.5 stars and 15 4 stars. My most common rating over the month was 4 stars. I read 23 adult, 11 YA, and 3 new adult. There's 4 in there that were DNFs, so that's why the math's a little off there. And then same here, there's 1 nonfiction, 9 fantasy, 3 graphic novels, 2 contemporary fiction, 21 romance, and 1 historical fiction. And then I read 18 standalones, 8 first book in a series, 8 middle book in a series, and 3 last book in a series. So those are my stats for the month. I would say my favorite books of the month other than my rereads were The Scarlet Alchemist and Iron Flame, because both were really good. But that is my January wrap up. Let me know how your January went, and I'll see you for another wrap up at the end of February. Bye friends!